What is up? Kaz here, and in today's video I'm going to give you 9 ways to make your siege defenses stronger. But before I do, for those who are not familiar with why this is important, your guild is awarded a certain number of points and crystals based on the number of total points you get in a siege battle. And that's also based on the rank that your guild is. So for example, if we go into info here, and we are a G1 guild, we'll see that if you win the siege and you get number 1, then your guild is going to get, each player that's participating in that siege is going to get 140 crystals plus an additional amount of crystals that's based on the percentage of contribution points that you get in the battle. So the more contribution points you get, the more crystals you're going to get. Same is true with the guild points. Your guild points are going to be based on your contribution. So for example, if you win, your guild has 20,000 points and you get 27% of that as guild points. That's for your guild split. So that would come out to 5,400 guild points, and let's say you got 20% contribution. That means that you would get 1,080 guild points. And that's a lot of Ifrit pieces, that's a lot of light and dark pieces, that's a lot of flags that you can upgrade. And so it's essential that you get good siege defenses if you want to really build your account. Now, for those that don't know, you get 5 points every time you successfully defend. And so this is a way that you can actually increase the amount of guild points that you get in each guild battle. So as an example, on the last guild siege that we had, I got 200 contribution points, which equaled out to 24.8% of the contribution. And so, let's say we won that, and the guild gets 5,400 points. I would get 24.8% of those 5,400 points, which equals 1,339 guild points. And so on the last siege alone, I got over 1,300 guild points, and a lot of this came from defenses. Now in a typical siege, I'll get anywhere between 700 and 1,000 guild points, and usually between 300 and 400 crystals easily if our guild does well in aiming for high points, even if we are going for a second place finish. And I think my highest was just over 500 crystals and around 1,600 guild points just for one siege. And that was with me getting over 300 contribution points. That was, I believe, 14 attacks and 20 defenses or so. Now, with that said, I'm going to share some strategies that I've learned over a couple years to get that contribution up. But before I do, I want to clarify 2 things. First, if you're an endgame player and in a G2, G3 guild, then you're playing in a completely different world than the rest of us, and it will require a lot more to win at your level. The advice that I'm going to give today is going to be, by and large, for the majority of Summoners War players that are anywhere between late early game to mid game, and somewhat even into late game if you're in a farming guild. Second thing is that if you're early game, and essentially what I mean by that is that if you're at the point in the game where you don't yet have a solid Giants B10 team, Dragons B10 team, and a TOA normal 100 team, then even if you follow these tips, your results are going to be limited. You have to be able to achieve a certain level of rune quality before these tips are really going to work for you. So tuck some of these strategies away, and as you're building these teams, keep some of these things in mind so that as you begin to start building your monsters towards PvP content, you'll be able to put some of this to good use. And so with that, let's jump right in. Now there are 2 types of defenses out there that I'm going to help you create. The first type is what we're going to deal with in today's video, and that's going to be strong defenses. The second type of defense out there is going to be a troll defense, and once I make that video in a couple days, I'm going to put that link down in the description below so that you can look at that as well. But for today, we're going to look at 9 ways to make strong siege defenses. Number 1, don't make teams of only one element unless that element is light or dark. Now, I know that that's common knowledge, but I still see too many people setting defenses this way, And the reason you don't want to set defenses with just one element is that people can easily cheeseball your defense. So for example, let's go ahead and create a siege defense here. So let's say we take Chow, who has a 50% defense lead for water monsters, and you think, great, well, let's bring 3 water monsters and they'll have a ton of defense and they'll be strong. So let's say we do Chow, let's bring Barbara in there, and let's bring Alucia. So we have 3 monsters, and you would think this is going to be a great defense. It has a ton of defense, it's got healing, it's got damage. What could go wrong? Well, what could go wrong is that any seasoned player can look at this defense and know that all you have to do is bring Rena with a wind damage dealer and it's over. So if we go into a test and I bring my Rena out, let's go ahead and pick a couple wind damage dealers here. So let's say we take Yen and Ethna. And we go into the guild battle here. And what we're going to find here is that this is going to be really easily beaten because all 3 of the enemy monsters are just going to target Rena, and that will leave our damage dealers completely free to take down the damage threats here. And so all we have to do is just attack away, and we don't even have to worry about it because just like we see here, all 3 of the enemy monsters are just targeting Rena. And we could even auto it from here and we'd be completely safe. See, there's no threat at all. Rena's going to sit there and she's going to tank those hits all day long, and none of those monsters are going to be able to get through that shield. So it's an easy win. And so we don't want to bring just one element to a defense. Number 2, you want to pick quality over quantity. What that means is that if you have 3 6-star monsters, don't spread them out over 3 teams just so you have more teams. Having 1 strong team is going to give you more defenses than 3 mediocre teams. You might think that this is something that doesn't have to be said, but it is ridiculous how many people actually do this. So for example, say they have a prize Chow that they have. They'll throw that Chow in there, and then they say, okay, well, Chow's going to carry it, so then I'll come down here and I'll pick a Colleen, and I'll pick a Stella, both of those 4-star monsters. What that's going to say is that whoever's attacking it only needs to worry about that Chow. So it's essentially a 1-on-3 match, and you just don't want to do it. It's an easy win. Number 3, don't make a team with no way to win. What I mean by that is don't put a team together, even if it follows the first 2 rules, that has no way to win. So, for example, and I've seen this in Siege too many times. Say someone puts in a Bernard and they have a Megan, and then they throw in a Colleen. This one, it could be fast. It has some sustain from Colleen. It has 3 elements. What it doesn't have is a way to kill enemy monsters. You have 3 support monsters here, and they have no way to win. And if we're being real here, even my alt that's about 3 weeks old could kill this defense blindfolded. So just don't do it. Number 4, think of the most common offensive teams that will be used when you make a defense. Now this piggybacks on the first tip. Rena is one of those common monsters that people will bring to easily cheeseball a defense. In the previous example, we took Yen, Ethna, and Rena, and we brought it up against our water-only defense. But suppose we took that same defense, let's see, what was it? Chow, it was Barbara, and Alucia. We could even just take the Rena in there to tank it out, and we could bring just the Yen, and they would be able to 2v3 the siege. It'd be easy. It might take a little bit longer, but it would be an easy win. And you don't want to do that. So you want to think about some of the most common monsters that are used when people attack on offense. Rena's one of them. Some other teams that you want to think about is, can it be soloed by Commune? If you see the defense Bernard, Megan, and Lucian, it can be Kamoon. Can it be soloed by can it be a 2v3 by a Megan or a Konamiya boosting up a fat Lucian? Can it be soloed by a Ramagos? Can it be soloed by Garo? Can someone bring a Copper and easily clear your defense? These are some of the things that you want to think about when you create a defense. And if nothing else, think about the most two common offenses that people use. They're going to bring a Lucian team for a speed clear, and they're going to bring a Copper team. So you're going to want to find some way to go ahead and proactively counter those particular teams. Number 5, make sure that your team has good balance and synergy. And what this means is that the team needs to work together. For example, don't put a speed lead with a slow monster. So let's put something together here. Let's say we have a Galleon, and you throw him in there with an Antares and a Ballard. Okay, what's going to happen is that you have this speed lead, 24%, that's going to go on to an Antares, which doesn't typically get built with speed, and his turns are primarily from interrupting other turns, and you have a Balaguer who's typically built very slow for the BJ5 team. And he's not going to do well with the extra speed, or it's not really going to benefit him much. And so when you put teams together, you want to make sure that there is a good synergy. You also want to make sure that there is a good balance. A good example of this was when we had that Bernard, Megan, and Colleen team. There was no balance because you didn't have any damage. There was no way for it to win. Likewise, if you bring 3 damage dealers that can just be tanked out by a bruiser team, that's not going to provide much. You're not going to get many wins from it. Now, there is a specific condition in which you're going to want to purposely defy this rule, but that's going to require a very specific build, and I'm going to discuss that in the second part where we talk about troll teams. Number 6, make sure you bring a defense break if your team is going to win with a big damage dealer. Now, I can't say this enough. Without a defense break, just bringing a tanky monster to absorb the hits will be enough to get the win. So, for example, let's go ahead and put together a team that's got 2 damage dealers. So let's say we have a Pungbake who has a crit lead. He's a big damage dealer. And then we bring a Colleen that's going to give an attack buff. And let's bring our Chow. On this comp, a seasoned player is going to look at that and say, okay, where are the threats? The threats are the Pungbake and the Chow. So with that, you're going to be able to deduce that you can just bring Arena into that with a wind damage dealer, and you're going to be able to very easily clear that. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put, well, I need to put together that team again. So what was it? It was where is it? Pungbake. It was Colleen and Chow. So if we go in to test the battle, all we would have to do in order to win this one would be to bring 2 wins. So we're going to bring our Yen and our Ethna again. And this time our damage dealer is going to be Camilla, who's going to be able to easily tank out the other 2 without a defense break. And what we're going to see in this battle is that the 2 damage dealers are just going to target the Camilla here, and we have absolutely nothing to worry about because we're going to be able to clean this up very easily. Those 2 damage dealers are just going to pound away at Camilla all day, and she's just going to tank it like a champ. And we can already see where this is ending, so we'll go ahead and quit out of this. But bottom line, if you're going to bring a damage dealer and that's going to be your way to win, you need to put a defense breaker in there. Number 7, speed tune your teams. So if your defense breaker, for example, is running 200 speed, let's say that you have a Galleon that you're running, and let's say he's 200 speed. It doesn't make sense for you to bring a damage dealer that's going to be 150 speed, because too much is going to be able to happen in that short span of time. As another example, if you have a stripper that's going to be essential to work with this galleon, let's say you bring a Triton. Triton's, let's say 220 speed, galleon's 215 speed. That's a good setup there. What you don't want to happen is that you have an attack monster that's so slow that whoever is attacking you is able to cleanse that defense break, CC your team, or whatever it is it might be. You don't want anyone interrupting the flow. And so when you have a team that you've put together that works well together, you want to make sure that that team is speed tuned so that no one's going to cut you. Obviously, there is an example of an exception to this rule, and that's if you need a big speed gap. So let's say if you have a 300 speed Chloe, that's going to keep your team protected until your 120 speed Katarina can go. That's a whole different story, because it's planned that way, that your Chloe's going to protect your entire team, and your enemy's team is going to just burn off their turns, and then you're going to nuke them. But that's more of an offensive combination, and that brings us to number 8. Good offensive teams doesn't equal good defensive teams. And you would be surprised how many people do this. I see so many Chloe Katarina combinations on defense. I see a lot of single element combinations on defense because of this logic. And they think just because they can bring that team into a battle on offense and get good results, that they're going to get good results from defense. One example is a team that I commonly use, and that would be Garo, Swift Roke, and Vertiheel. And the idea behind that team is that my team's just going to go first. They're going to go fast. Roke is going to pull Vertiheel, giving everyone a turn. They're going to nuke the first monster. Vertiheel is going to get the second turn. He's going to boost up the attack bar of everybody again, which is going to give Roke a second turn before the enemy gets the chance to get a first turn. Garo's going to go in there and give some extra damage, and it's really just a really quick nuke team. But if you put the same team on defense, it's going to be very easy to win. All you have to do is bring a meat shield and a couple water monsters, and it's over. Just don't do it. The AI is very predictable, and having only one element, having a team that's good on offense, is not always good. Another thing to consider is that AI is stupid sometimes. It's not always going to know that it needs to defy elemental advantage in order to defense break a threat. Whereas you can make that judgment call on offense, AI can't do that on defense. And then finally, number 9, don't give up too quickly. My rule is that it takes at least 10 battles before you can start accurately gauging whether or not a defense is good. It's very possible that you could build a Rockstar defense only for the first 3 people to hit it to be G3 players that are hiding in a lower ranked siege. And there's no defending against that if you're a lower ranked player. Someone who wants to come in and get farm free points is going to win, hands down, no matter what you do. Likewise, if you have a weak defense, but then a noob attacks it 5 times and you win all of them, your 5-0 record doesn't mean that you have a good defense. It just means that the player that attacked you raged you and didn't have the runes to beat you. Now what I want to do to finish this off is I want to go through some of my defenses that I have set up that are considered strong defenses, and we're going to go through the strategy of why I put these defenses together the way I did, and we're going to explain why those defenses work. So for the first defense that I have here, this defense is Fran, Escher, and Lauren. Now this defense is 40 wins and 24 losses, so it's got a pretty decent record. Now what happens here is that my Fran is ruined fairly quickly. She's about 250 speed on Vio, and she's going to give immunity and attack buff first. My Lauren then, because she's light, is able to choose any monster, and she can strip, she can defense break all in one shot, and that's going to set up my Escher to come in, use skill 3, and just nuke down one monster. And because I've ruined all of these monsters above 200 speed, they're going to be able to cycle through turns especially against someone who isn't as well ruined, and it's going to catch a lot of people off guard. Another strong defense that I have set up, and this one's kind of meta, or at least it used to be, is Aegir, Skogul, and Triana. When you see a Skogul defense, you normally think, okay, I can Garo this. But that's where the Aegir comes in. The Aegir makes it so that Garo is not going to feel too safe. Aegir can easily kill Garo if it's a one-on-one match. The other thing you might think is, okay, well, I could just copper this defense if it wasn't for the fact that I had Triana. So Triana is going to give it protection from copper. Skogul's HP and the HP lead from Aegir is going to make it so that it's going to be questionable as to whether or not a Lucian team can beat this. And so it's already had in mind several defenses, or several common offenses that would attack it. Another team that I have here is Sierra, Chilling, and my Swift Rogue. And this team is 18 wins and 7 losses. And on this particular team, the strategy behind it is that my Rogue in this comp is running over 300 speed. And what he does is he pulls both the Chilling to strip, and he pulls Sierra. And when Sierra gets pulled, if she gets any crits, that's going to build her attack bar. So she's going to have the chance to potentially drop a bomb on a monster that was just freshly stripped by Chilling. Now, if she doesn't get any crits, say that someone brought a fire team against this and Rogue chose to attack the fire monster. Well, in that case, Chilling is going to go second, and he's going to have the opportunity to strip a second monster, which means that Sierra is going to have a 2 out of 3 chance of landing a bomb on a threat. And regarding the common offensive teams that might be used, I have purposely made my Rogue Swift so that if someone does bring a Copper comp or a Lucian comp, it's going to be really iffy as to whether or not their attack bar booster is going to be able to outspeed my Rogue. And so you want to bring that hesitation into a player that's going to be attacking you offensively, because when you throw them off of their A game and they can't use the offenses that they normally want to use, then you're causing them to create new offenses that sometimes have not been tested, and sometimes those tests don't go well, and it gives you a few extra wins. Another comp that does well, and this one is very meta as well, is Galleon, Clara, and Yen. The idea here is that all 3 monsters are going to be ruined very quick, and now I'm not a G3 player, and so my runes aren't quite up to the standard that you would see in a G3 guild battle. But if you look, my Clara is running 259 speed, my Galleon is 249 speed, and my Yen is 245 speed. And then you add the speed lead to that, and it makes them fairly quick. And the idea is that they're going to outspeed a lot of comps, so that you can't in a Nat 4 tower bring a Copper or a Lucian team comfortably to this, because you don't know what's going to happen. That Clara can strip and stun you, AoE, that Galleon is going to defense break and attack buff, and that Yen is just going to go ham. And if you know anything about RNG on defense, you know that built-in Vio like Yen or Vio sets on a Theo will ruin your day really quick. And so that's why this defense works. And then the last one that I have here is my Feng Yan, Theo, and Rogue defense. Now this particular Rogue is a Vio Rogue, and he has 234 speed, so he's still not terribly slow. And the idea here is that you have threats from 3 different monsters, or from 3 different elements rather. And the idea is that the Rogue is going to go first, and he's going to nuke a target. That target is going to get some damage from Rogue. The Feng Yan goes second, he's going to defense break, and then the Theo is going to clean up. So immediately you're going to have a 2v3 match. When that damage is done, that opponent's beaten, Rogue gets a second turn, he's going to defense break someone else with his first skill, and because my other 2 monsters aren't ruined too far behind him, Feng Yan's going to come in, potentially do a defense break if one was missed, and Theo's going to clean up a second monster. This defense I keep on the front line just running 67 wins and 44 losses. And the reason I think this one doesn't do as well as some of my others is because you can look at it and you can see that there is a big threat there. And so a lot of people are going to bring their strongest comps against it. Alright guys, that's going to do it for today's video. I hope it's been helpful to you. If you have any questions or if you have any siege defenses of your own, let me know down in the comments below what your best siege defenses are and any suggestions that you have regarding building siege teams. If this has been helpful to you, smash that like button, subscribe, and until next time, peace out.